Hello, this is the video if you missed class Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, or in-class session March 8th, 9th, or 10th. So here is what we did in class. I'm trying to make this window bigger, but it's not working. So, okay. We copied this timeline into our notebooks to start with. Just a reminder, antebellum era is pre-war with the U.S. Civil War, and then the Reconstruction era is putting the country back together. And then we wrote this rhyme down in our notebooks. 1-3 slaves are free, 1-4 citizens more, 1-5 votes can't be denied. I talked about how they passed these Reconstruction amendments pretty fast because the southern states hadn't rejoined the Union, so they didn't need any votes from the South, so that's how they were able to pass kind of these Reconstruction amendments super fast. And then we started to talk about black codes, and black codes you learned about in your notes video from last week. There were laws made to restrict African American lives. And so we did an activity, and the worksheet is attached for you somewhere. Let me show you what it looks like. It looks like this. It says black codes, and then it gives you one of the black codes or laws, and then you put it into your own words. That's that activity that we did together. And then we kind of talked about the point of black codes, and that the point of black codes were to restrict black people, but because usually when people make harsh laws like this, it's because they're afraid of something. So we talked about like plantation owners were scared of losing power, of losing money. The poor farmers were scared of losing their job to these free slaves, and so that's where kind of this anger and this racism comes out of. We also reviewed Andrew Johnson and Radical Republicans. This was also in your note video from last week. Andrew Johnson, we had these competing views of Reconstruction in the United States. Andrew Johnson gave back the plantation law. He was a land he was very interested in keeping the power structure in the South. And then you have the Radical Republicans who were interested in shaking up the structure of the South, that social pyramid, and wanted to help African Americans and give them more rights. So then we worked on this worksheet. It looks like this, and we went around the classroom, and depending and there's quotes and different things around the classroom, and you had to decide, would this be something Andrew Johnson would say, or would this be something the Radical Republicans would say? So I'll give you an example of this first one. It said, everyone would and must admit that the white race was superior to the black, and that while we ought to do our best to bring them up to our present level, that in doing so we should at the same time raise our own intellectual status so that the relative position of the two races would be the same. Essentially he's saying in fancy language, it's fine to raise black people up, but then you need to raise white people up even higher so they always remain higher. So what side would say that? That would be, of course, Andrew Johnson, who was not interested in helping African Americans and his very racist views and policies. So all those quotes and everything are in the bottom here. There's way more than you need, but you can kind of pick and choose. Don't worry about the letter part, but just put you can tell me which one it is, and then how you know it's Radical Republicans or Johnson. And let's see, then the last thing we did in class, let's see, we talked about how in the South, because there was a large number of angry people who were soldiers in the South, and plantation owners had lost their slaves, and now you have poor whites who are, see the free slaves as competition. This was rife for violence in the South, and so who kept the peace was the Union Army, the Northern Army. And then we talked about the Compromise of 1877. We watched this video, and the Compromise of 1877 was a deal between Republicans and Democrats. Oops, I'll link that video in for you. You want to make sure to write these things in your notes. The Republicans got Rutherford B. Hayes was elected president, and in exchange for that, the Democrats got what they wanted, and they pulled the Union troops out of the South, which is going to be super detrimental because there's nobody keeping people safe or keeping kind of order in the South anymore. This is when we say Reconstruction is finally over. The Compromise of 1877. I call it the deal with the devil because, the Republicans, in order to get the presidency, knew kind of what they were doing and were willing to kind of abandon Reconstruction in the South, which is going to have horrible consequences. So we're going to add to that timeline that you made at the beginning. You're going to add presidential election of Hayes, Union Army pulls out, and this ushers in the Jim Crow era, which is what we're going to talk about after spring break.